There's a conversation that happens inside medical and law school admissions offices that most applicants never hear. It happens in committee rooms and in the margins of application files. It's the little moment a dean closes a folder and decides, I spent over 15 years in that room. This is GradMissions Office Hours. I'm Autumn Rains-Lockett, and every week my team and I bring that conversation out into the open because the process was never meant to be a mystery, and your future is too important for guesswork. Let's get to work. Okay, so thank you all for joining us back. We are bringing you the part 2 we promised you last week, talking about the things that you should do to set yourself up for success on this pre-law, pre-med journey. Last week, we were talking to you a little bit, talking to your parents a little bit. So this is, of course, great for people who are about to start undergrad. This is also great if you're a non-traditional person who's thinking about law school or med school in the next year, year and a half. These are just some really strategic goals that, if I had a girlfriend who was thinking about going to law or med school, or if my own kid was thinking about going to law or med school and they were about to, embark on this year to year and a half long journey, here are the things that we as, a team would recommend for you to do.
So last week we talked a lot about focusing on your GPA first thing. Autumn had a really good point of just assume, even if you have a little sparkle in your mind that you may want to go to med or law school, to assume that your GPA is going to matter. And darkening the doors of professor office hours, asking thoughtful questions, all of that is really going to pay off not only for your undergraduate career, but then come junior, senior year when you're prepping for law or med school. I am just going to jump into an idea that I had last week that we ran out of time because we were just talking about, but my next biggest piece of advice would be consider your source. And what that means is, a lot of times when you are starting something new, especially something as huge as your undergraduate education, you're going to hear a lot of mumblings from your current classmates who heard from a friend of a friend, or your aunt whose friend's son went down the same path as you. You're going to hop on Google, you're going to get on Reddit, and I would just consider your source. And so that kind of ties in with the professor office hours and with doing the admissions accelerator with GradMissions. Talk to people who really have their finger on the button of what you want to achieve. And so if you hear, and that's not only for preparing for law and med school, but just undergraduate success in general.
And life.
In life. It's so true.
Check your sources.
If you're having your first baby, don't listen to people who had a really terrible labor experience. It's like if you're getting married, don't listen to the people who can't stay married or don't like being married, So yes, just in general. But a lot of times you'll have these kind of negative assumptions in your mind going in. Like, I heard that this statistics teacher is a real bull, and not to get too deep, but if that's what's in your mind going in, you're tainted to really have the true experience that you're meant to have. And so you may get in and that may be true, but try and have a fresh just thought process going into every experience you're about to have. So of course, be polite if someone's trying to share some, advice with you, but don't listen to it if it's not a good source. And so that's why we're here, because we all used to work for institutions and we did have our finger on the pulse. But we started GradMissions so that we could share even more advice and more knowledge. And that is something that we do weekly. We have staff calls where we talk about, the landscape of admissions and the landscape of what undergrad should look like to prepare you for med and law school. And so there's a lot to unpack there, but just consider your source and go straight to sources that are verified and have true experience in what you are trying to achieve. Because if not, you're just muddying the waters.
Right. Here's an example. We get a lot of pushback from the friends of clients who, let's say you're applying to law school and you also have a friend who's applying to MBA, and they're like, oh, no, your resume has to be one page. Well, that's true for the MBA program, but that's not true for law school. And so a lot of times the advice that you're hearing may not be specifically for you. So I think that's such a great point, Lysanne. Take what works for you and leave what doesn't. Take the good from the advice and leave what doesn't serve you well. You have that choice. I'm giving you permission.
Yes. And another one that really puts a bee in my bonnet, as Autumn likes to say, is for our future lawyers, you'll hear someone say, well, you have to be poli sci. You have to have a legal studies minor. If if you don't like political science, please don't be a political science major.
Nobody wants
Because
that.
first of all, you're not going to enjoy it. Second of all, your grades are going to reflect that you weren't fully invested in going to those office hours and joining study groups and joining student orgs. So
Mhm.
pick a major that you enjoy. We had all sorts of majors that we've seen that here at GradMissions, but when we worked for law schools, one of our top students was an opera major because they loved
Yeah.
opera and they were a great performer.
Yeah,
French, engineering, education, and so really, I mean, you've probably declared a major by this point, but if you haven't, really spend some time thinking about what you're passionate about and what you can, see yourself enjoying and really investing in.
that's right. I even think the diversity of majors, both for med and law school, is a benefit from someone who's sat on those admissions committees, listened to those interview postmortems. When we have someone apply who's not a biology major, who's not a poli sci with a history minor, and that no shade if that's what you are, but it does kind of stand out. And I think in the med school space, it's like a hidden kind of secret that if you aren't a biology major or a more traditional kind of science path major, you can still take those prerequisites and you have a little bit more control over when and how you take those science courses so you can stagger them out and it might even be a GPA boost. It certainly will be a quality of life boost if you're majoring in something that you care about and that you love and that you like can't wait to wake up and like even if it's an 8 a.m. class, you're excited to be there because the content is so exciting to you. That should be your major, not what you think an admissions committee wants to see. Because the admissions committee is going to be more moved by you picking a passion and digging in and just totally geeking out on the things that interest you.
100%. I feel like
Yes.
after working with students in 20 decades or 2 decades, 20
20
years,
decades. Lori, you
20
look
decades,
amazing.
just really great. 2 decades and working with undergrads, I mean, there were a couple of things I was like, if I could just get them to believe these things, I know that their future would be brighter. And one of my tops was study what you love.
Mhm.
You do have certain classes you have to take, and I love the advice. If you haven't listened to last week's podcast, maybe jumping back and listening to some of those class advice on classes to take, because there are certain ways that you're going to be taught in law school and that you're going to process information in med school, that taking, certain science classes that train you to think a certain way, or taking philosophy classes that engage you in a certain type of thinking, are going to be really helpful with, and you need that basis for. But just studying what you love is so important. I think the other thing that really sort of stands out to me and connects back to what Lizanne was talking about for your sources is get a glimpse of what you're doing. I know so many students are pre-med without maybe a lot of information beyond I'm smart, I do well in school, and I want to help people, but they haven't really seen or scratched the surface of what it looks like. And there's so many different ways to help people within the medical profession. And so you may talk to a doctor who's a dermatologist, and this is, they kind of share about their experience and their current lifestyle and what that looks like, and what undergrad looked like for them, what med school looked like for them, and then talk with, someone who's an ER surgeon and get a very different picture of what that future looks like, of what their experiences were like. So it's so varied that get a lot of sources, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, know your sources and then work that network, whether you're talking to your parents and your friends, and you're working your own personal network, or you're working with an agency within the university like career services, or your faculty members, and work that network to sign up for shadowing opportunities, sign up for opportunities to just have a peek behind the curtain of what it looks like. It can be such a motivator through some of those difficult classes to know what's on the other side of that, and what it looks like to get to do what you've been dreaming about doing. And also to be able to kind of connect and choose the right activities and choose the right opportunities, because you can see that line, you can see that pathway a little more clearly when you've had a chance to take a peek behind the curtain and shadow someone, or do an interview with someone. So those are all things that I would highly recommend that you do as an undergrad, that are kind of outside the classroom.
I think that's so important to kind of understand the reality of the profession and not just what your dreams are of it. Because in reality, if you don't want to get into med or law school and then see what it is and say, well, this is not really the path I want to go down. And so it's good for you to understand that in undergrad. and to start building, like you said, that network. I'm always going to be talking about building your network. But it's a great way for you to build the network, but also to see what the reality is like for day to day, because it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies. And you need to know that, and you need to understand and see the grind. And is it worth it for you? And the activities that you get involved in will help you. They need to help you lead you towards your profession, but you don't have to get involved in everything. It's quality over quantity. So,
Mhm.
so shadowing is great, but any other activities that you can get involved in, find quality activities for you to get involved in to build your resume with, and ones that you're interested in and passionate about, because you're going to be asked about those in interviews. And so you need to be able to speak clearly and confidently about them. And it's not just something that's filling your resume. It's something that you love and you enjoy and you can talk passionately about.
I think it's
Absolutely.
not necessarily what you do, it's how you do it.
Mhm. Yeah. That's what I was going to say too, just along the lines of you don't have to do all the things. Again, it's very exciting. Go to the student organization fairs and learn about them. But a lot of times, students will get hung up on, well, I've got to have all this stuff on my resume in order to look impressive. I've got to join the pre law society, the pre med club, I've got to do mock trial. And all those things are great. But if you, after freshman year, and kind of dabble in and see what you like and what you don't like and what's serving you well, really pick just a few that you can. Law and med school loves to see if you've joined an organization and you've moved into a leadership position, or you've really invested more time and you're not just having a sprinkling of I popped in and out of meetings, but I was actually invested in that group and, volunteering, working at some clinics for free, you know, joining, not just joining, but actually investing your time in that. And another thing that I would do is journal about the times that you're doing that. So when you're shadowing, when you're, involved in a certain organization, it doesn't have to be a physical journal. You could keep a note in your phone, but writing about that in your senior year is something that you did into freshman, sophomore year. Having that note and having that journal of how, what you experienced and how it changed you is going to help. Because I know a lot of these times you'll remember these big moments, but the detail of it and
Yeah.
just having that written down, you really thank your past self for writing it all down so that you're not having to come up from scratch.
Yeah. Even just a bullet journal at the end of each week.
Yeah.
Like, here's 3 things that I did, add some texture, be done. I want to talk about something that happens sometimes with high achievers. And I don't know what else to call it other than catfishing. Like, you spend your life,
Yeah.
love you all, but you're spending your life
Yeah.
trying to please the admissions committees at schools that you will someday apply to, and not really checking in and being introspective and honest with yourself about what you like, about what you're good at, about what makes your heart sing. I know that sounds kind of silly, but you only have this, like, I mean, maybe that we know of, this like one beautiful life. So when you're trying to like shove yourself into a square shaped hole and you're a beautiful round oval, like, you are not going to be happy. And if you catfish long enough through undergrad or through this year and a half leading up to your med and law school application, oh my goodness, what if you end up at a law school that's a horrible fit for you, or a med school program that's a horrible fit for you? Um, then you're going to end up having to catfish your way through law school. And then guess what? Here's your life, and you've got this 10-year plan. And I think that's why we see a lot of burnout, because these high achievers try to fit the
Yeah.
mold of what they think success looks like. Success looks like you being happy and healthy and doing the things that make you feel full of life. And that might sound pie in the sky, but you can do that. Like, I give you the permission to pursue your passions and not to feel like you have to make your life look application ready.
Because committees can see that something is inauthentic.
Oh my gosh, a mile away. Yes.
And we can see, oh, this girl is going to crash out 2 year so hard because it's well intentioned, right? She's a firstborn and she's a go getter and she's a high achiever. And everyone's always told her she's super smart and she can go change the world. And yes, she can. But if she's doing something that she doesn't want to do at the end of the day, she's gonna crash out. It's just the
Eventually,
truth.
it's going to catch up
Eventually.
with you.
Yeah.
And if you're doing something that you have been told that this is what you need to do, that these are the boxes that you need to check, you're not going to be interesting.
Yeah.
You're not going to be the one that I want to talk to in an interview. You're going to be just like everyone else that has
Mhm.
checked the boxes. So follow your passions, like Autumn said, and
Yeah.
you're going to be so much more authentic, so much more interesting, and the one that we want to talk to. We want to talk to all of you, but the admissions committee and
Yes.
the interviewers, I mean, I can tell you one of my favorite interviews was with a ballerina. I'm like, how does ballerina turn to law? And she's a super successful big law attorney now. And that was a ballerina because she followed her passion in undergrad.
Mhm.
She didn't just do big law. And she got a lot of interviews because everyone wanted to talk to the ballerina that became a lawyer.
Sorry. That's right. And that signals work ethic. Again, it's not what she did. It's not like her plies led to please, right? But what it did is it taught her work ethic. It taught, and we got to see her passion. And I also worked with that student, and she was powerful and just a force. And you learn to be captivating. And that stage presence in the boardroom is impressive. And if she had tried to fit herself into a poli sci box, she would have been miserable. She probably wouldn't have gotten half the opportunities. I mean, she was amazing. She was going to do great at whatever she did, but it wouldn't have been half as compelling.
Those BFA kids, fine arts kids,
Sign me up.
crush it. They are scared of nothing because they
Nothing.
go on stage all the time. They are at rehearsal till 1 a.m. I mean,
And they keep their grades up. Like,
yeah, crush it.
yeah.
And I think what y'all are just kind of clicking through in some of what you've seen in applicants, that's what the admissions committee is looking for. If there's a
Mhm.
checklist, if there's a box you need to check, everybody's going to check it. We know it. Here's this thing this class you need to take, or this experience you need to have, or this many clinical hours. Yes, that's there. We know that. But for the things that really make you unique and you, we're looking for that passion. We're looking for someone who was dedicated to something that they cared about, that you could see how they contributed to that, how determined they were, the things that they overcame because they cared about it. And that comes through in the essay, in the interview, in all of the pieces of the application. And you can't fake that. So having that real, authentic experience. I love the idea that Lizanne talked about, recording the notes. I have a high school student. I'm like, did you voice memo that experience? I mean, especially like helping with the essay lab and thinking about your essays, you need to just walk away and be, just kind of share everything that you felt, that you experienced, what you saw, smell, heard, what made that exciting, what the energy in the room was. Having all of that real experience recorded somewhere, all of those real layers of what was fun for you, what was exciting for you, even if you don't think it relates. They're looking for, what does it do within you? How does it spark that determination, that willingness to go the extra mile, that contribution? Those are the things that they're looking for, not
Yeah.
did you do this specific internship with this specific person?
On that note, I want to talk about a couple of things that admissions committees do not care about. They don't care. You think they care, and you get twisted up and you spend so much energy and effort doing. There are probably other things. I'm going to kick us off. You all be thinking about others because I know there are so many more that I'm not thinking about. It was almost a running joke at the law schools that I have worked at that the pre-law club president was going to have done terribly on the LSAT.
I
I'm
knew
not
you were
trying
going
to
to
like
take
come,
mine.
sorry.
I
I
was like,
mean,
we're going to think the same thing.
but
Sorry, keep going.
it's the same thing in the pre-med space. Like the pre-med club president, the person who's like the president of the EMT and this and that, and like you've done all these performative things to look like you're ready for law and med school. I almost feel like it lulls them into a false sense of security because you're like, I've sat through all the lunch and learns about how to be an attorney and how to do my LSAT and how to, and it's like you check off the box because you've done law adjacent things, but like standing in a McDonald's doesn't make you a Happy Meal. You have to do the damn thing. You have to do the hard work. You have to study. You have to keep your grades up. People think that being the pre-law club president is going to make up for their 2.57 GPA. No, that shows me as a member of the admissions committee that you are overcommitted and that you haven't figured out how to handle your business and your extracurriculars at the same time. I would rather you be just a member of that club and have a 3.2 or a 3.3. I mean, higher if the higher the better. So I just want to talk again, if you're the pre-law club or the pre-med club president, I adore you and I'm rooting for you. And we have clients who are those and who have done incredible. I just want you to not get lulled into the false sense of security that what you're doing is going to overcompensate for a subpar MCAT, LSAT, or GPA. Have I stepped on toes? Probably. Sorry.
Probably, but it needs to be said. Again, you don't have to check the boxes.
That's
because
right.
You hit the nail on the head about it being performative and not, substantive.
That's
So
right.
that's
That's right.
what they're looking.
I see a lot of you who are influencing, right? Like you're on TikTok and Instagram and you're like highlighting your colors and you're doing all these things and it's funny. And listen, I've hired a comedian to take the LSAT. Like I think this content is amazing. My algorithm is filled with it. But you can't again lull yourself into this false sense of security that because you filmed 20 hours of content studying for the MCAT that you were actually soaking in those pathways that you need, right? You don't know the Krebs cycle just because you filmed yourself highlighting the Krebs cycle. Like, do you actually know it? Like, let's be honest with ourselves about that. And I just don't want you to have this security blanket that it's going to, but I did this, right? Like, no, it's not going to work.
Yeah, numbers matter across the board, right?
Across the board.
This is the start of the application process, and there's really not much you can do if there are some metrics that aren't made. So I think that for especially our high achievers, we touched on this a little bit in the last episode, it is really hard when you're used to doing great without having to study or
Mm.
without having to put forth a lot of time and effort on learning material. You're learning it at a surface level though, and we need you to learn it at a really deep level. I don't need to walk into the ER. I had one of my favorite faculty members ever was a biology faculty, and he said, you can't prepare yourself to be a doctor if you're just memorizing the nervous system, right? I need you to not you I need to be able to walk into the ER and have a doctor who's not just going to be able to label the nervous system, but is going to be able to tell me why everybody is, struggling and oh, turns out you ate this thing and that affects your nervous system this way, So anyway, I loved that example that he would give. You have real world things that you're gonna have to untangle, and it's not this surface level. And so you are going to do a lot more than you've ever done before on your academics, probably. You are going to have to know it at a much deeper level, and you are going to spend a lot more time with it in order to do that. It's just something that you can't get around besides spending time on tasks. So, learning how to learn, if that's something that you haven't really had to conquer yet, you haven't really created study methods or learned how to study appropriately to learn something at a deeper level, take it. It's worth putting some investment in that, taking a class in that, reading some books on that. We can put some in the show notes because I think there's some great resources out there.
Yeah. And you're going to learn how to dig deeper and really geek out on subjects when you're setting again back to setting something you care about, right? Like if you're just learning something for the exam, that's not the kind of learning. Who among us hasn't sat in a business math class and watched the professor do the formulas on the board and being like, yep, I know how to do that. And then you get home to do the homework and you're like, oh shoot, no, I don't know how to do. I was lulled into a false sense of security. And so I'm gonna pack it in and go to office hours and we're going to work through this until I can do it on my own with my eyes closed, muscle memory. And that's the kind of learning that needs to be done for the MCAT. The kind of, the LSAT is not a content-based test. It's like reading through, parsing through dense information and coming to the right conclusion in a time concept and a tight timeline there. But it's a muscle that you can learn when you spend your undergraduate time reading dense work and thinking critically and taking stats and philosophy that kind of reform your brain on how to do those things. So we've covered a lot of ground. I think so many value nuggets here of things that you can do to really set yourself up for success. I think the last thing I would want to say is whenever you think you want to start med or law school, you need to subtract back about 2 years. And that's the right time to really start in earnest prepping, getting your stuff together, getting your exam prep work together, thinking about letters of recommendation, getting resumes, activities, pre-writing essays. It's about a 2-year tail. So you will need to start earlier than you think, I promise.
We love working with accelerator clients doing just that. We sit down with you in your freshman, sophomore year and talk about all of these things, but that are unique to you and your experiences and your goals. And we give you a roadmap that has all of this written out and then give you some journal prompts and all this advice. And so it really is, sounds silly, but it's really fun to me getting to sit down with an undergrad and say, you are in the best position so that when your senior year comes around, you're not scrambling and you're getting, because enjoy undergrad. It's a great time to make lifelong friends, as cheesy as that sounds. Live independently and figure out what you like and what you care about. And so being able to put these systems in place. Autumn always laughs at me because I'm a systems girl, but like have this timeline so that you can really just enjoy these years while preparing for something so great, I think is so exciting.
Yeah, it is. And I think the reason that we get so like excited and giddy, all of us, about this is that we have worked in places that we didn't have this kind of, we couldn't, when we were serving on the admissions committees of med and law schools, by the time an application got to us, it was too late.
Yeah.
And so it's like we get this incredible opportunity to actually actively impact an application and like impart all of this, 2 decades worth of knowledge that we have gleaned. And you get to be the recipient of that and of not just that history, but of the clients who we have who are 1Ls, 2Ls, 3Ls, who are MS1s, MS2, MS3s. Like you are getting, a lot of institutional knowledge about this and current knowledge about what's going on. And then we care about you and we're there with you. So book a free 20-minute strategy call with me. You'll get me on the call. People are surprised sometimes when they book this call. I'm there, like, oh, you're here. I'm like, yes, you're booking a call with me. You will leave that 20-minute strategy call with a plan, even if we don't work together. But you'll also, as long as you're not a knucklehead, leave with an invitation likely to work with us in some capacity. And so we'd love to chat with you. GradMissions.org is our website. You should follow us on socials at grad_missions. And we'll be back again next week with more pearls of wisdom. Bye, y'all.